Hello crafty people, and welcome to this mess. My name's Michaela and I'm a very lucky bunny because I have a dedicated craft room. I've looked at craft room tours obsessively for a couple of weeks now, and on YouTube it seems that craft room is usually paper craft. That's not what I do. I do needlework, hand embroidery, cue montage. I put this craft room together about 3 years ago, and back then I made some surprisingly modern choices considering, generally speaking, my preferred interior design aesthetic could best be described as Victorian opium den. I painted this wall bright blue, which I actually still like, and put up floating shelves, which I do not like. I mean, they are lovely shelves, but they fit with nothing else in the room, and to be honest, my main issue with them is that I don't trust them. Look at that. There's nothing holding them up. That's the work of the devil. There, obeying gravity. Wonderful. Satan. I put my desk, this is all such a mess. I put my desk in the middle of the room, thinking I could, craft by natural light. But I realized I usually use the lamp anyways, so this desk is taking up space in the middle of the room completely uselessly. The large basket is my cabbage, the small basket are my current projects, so this is clearly the ideal solution. Back here I'm collecting cardboard and wood, which I actually use, but I really don't need to have it here. I could put it down into the cellar and then just get what I need when I'm in the mood to make something. There's some of my work. This big boy in the corner, I love it. But clearly, there's all this mess on the top. The shelves need clearing out. Oh, I've already collected some, caskets and empty cigarette boxes so I can sort things and store them later. The drawers is my main storage for needlecraft supplies and also needs desperately clearing out. Yeah. Then down here, my yarn stash, more cardboard. Then back here, these shelves is my main fabric storage, because I'm teaching myself how to sew. But yes, this could also look better. There's my T-bar, and then we're back around. It just all, it could look so lovely, and it doesn't, and it's really kind of heartbreaking. Oh, this is also a piece I made. It's a pinboard, which I'm using as a packboard to store small sewing supplies. But I could sort it out and make it look nice. Oh yeah, I'm hoping to move my watercolor in as well, because I'm teaching myself watercolor, because, a lot of the concepts of, color and value that hold for watercolor also hold for needlework. So I'm teaching myself art. This I love. This is a pinboard made out of cardboard. And wait a second, with a bit of light it might actually look good. Da -da -da -da. More storage. I'll go through everything when I put the room back together. For now, I'm going to move things away from this wall and then deal with the shelves. So that's step one. After a day and a half of sorting, this is the current state of affairs. Sometimes you have to tear things apart just to put them back together again. Things are everywhere and some tough decisions will have to be made. Onwards and upwards. I have dug out some old shoeboxes and freed up some space in some other ones. Things are getting sorted and thrown out, and, of course, anything that is still usable, even if I don't want it, I will try to find a way to donate it or pass them along to someone who can make use of them. All right, 3 days on, it's done. I'm just holding on the carpet because, look, I vacuumed. There is so much space here now. Oh, and I'm keeping the curtains closed so I don't accidentally film one of my neighbors. I don't like the idea of filming somebody without their consent. Let's do a quick turn around the room. I will try to hold the camera as steady as possible so I don't cause anybody seasickness. Now let's get to the nitty-gritty. This shelf is new. Well, new to this room. It's been standing in various relative cellars for decades, and now I have it. On the top shelf I have some LED candles, a work in progress. When working white on white, the progress is quite difficult to see, but I promise it's there. When I sorted out the pinboard, I took down a couple of half-made little projects and keep them in this little pouch now. Next to it, a plant pot that holds my knitting needles and crochet hooks, and a couple of chopsticks. Most of these are inherited from my grandmother. She was a beautiful knitter and set me up for life with needles of all sizes. Attached to the top shelf is a barrel clamp that holds my embroidery hoop when I work at the table. The shelf underneath is quite empty, and I hope I will find a printer that fits the space, because it'd be such a help in my, well, especially with sewing, but also with embroidery. Enough talk about what is not there. What is there is a casket that holds stationery for doing pattern planning or life planning, actually. Next to it are the threads for the white work above, and a little silver bowl where I collect all my thread ends. In winter I put them out on the window for the squirrels to grab and build their nest with them. Kind of like this. Below that are all the inks and dyes I made, mostly from fruits and berries from the garden. Mushroom ink, what else do we have? Dye from the Virginia creeper, turmeric ink, Oregon grape, cloves. Next to them, a little thing I rigged up from an empty can and a bit of wire, and it holds my paintbrushes when they dry. Speaking of brushes, behind that are my watercolors. Some Schminke, some Sennelier. A small block of fancy watercolor paper. And I got a little excited when I dug this up. A Pelican watercolor set from the 60s. My dad used it in school. Also some Faber-Castell color pencils, some fancy straight-up pencils, more color pencils. As I said, I'm trying to learn myself some art. I don't know how some people do these tours one-handed. I'm making a huge mess of things. Over here, oh, a goose feather I found in the park and cut into a quill. Moving on to the lower shelves. Okay, if I was as clever as I think I'm not, I'd put the boxes of my precious things above the shelf full of inks, but I like to live dangerously, I guess. Here we have my book pouch, and I'm cutting in footage of me opening it because trying to open a zipper one-handed on camera is a mistake I will not repeat. I am currently reading a reprint of May Morris's decorative needlework. May Morris is the daughter of William Morris, famous arts and crafts designer, who appointed his daughter, May, to lead the embroidery department of the Morris & Co. company. As opposed to her father, May Morris was not just a designer, but a very accomplished embroiderer as well, so she had a lot to say on the topic. Oh, I really enjoyed the dedication on the front. Only taste that keen pleasure which everyone feels in creative work, however unpretending. But the product will be such as others will be careful to preserve. This in itself being an incentive to good work. For work done at the demand of fashion or caprice, and that done inevitably, that is, for its own sake, are as widely dissimilar as can be. The first being discarded in a month or so as ridiculous and out of date, and the other remaining with us in all its dignity of beauty and fitness, to be guarded as long as may be against the unavoidable wear and tear of time. Sometimes I wonder if May would approve of my work, and I'm afraid probably not. The other boxes on these shelves are mail, mostly Patreon rewards and things I was sent by internet friends. Below that, stationery, mostly stock up for when my little casket runs low on things. Then a box of lace and velvet ribbon. My lace and ribbon box is actually a lot less exciting than the title suggests. The velvet ribbon I found on Amazon. Mostly the lace is samples of crochet lace. Apparently somebody taught themselves different patterns of crochet ribbons and borders. Some of these are really beautiful, and if I ever get around to it, I'd like to translate these samples back into crochet charts for me to use when I make more. There's also bits and pieces of other pretty things. Some bobbin lace. I think this used to be a belt on a blouse. Again, more machine lace. And some random bits and pieces of furniture trim of all things. I think I might have a bit of an issue when I can't even throw out tiny bits of offcuts of lace, but at least it doesn't take up a lot of room. Here's some trim I bought, hoping to make myself a skirt maybe, with some cute trim on the hem. This lace was the trim on my aunt's curtains. When she redecorated, I stole it. And when I say I stole it, I mean I asked and she said I could have it. More teeny tiny bits. I need to get into textile journaling if I ever want to use this stuff. In the baggie is a half a yard of lace netting I ordered from Mood Fabrics. It was on sale and I was curious about the quality. At the very bottom of the box is a sheet of ribbon samples from a lace manufacturer. So pretty. That green is beautiful. The unmarked box is an embroidery kit that I haven't gotten to yet, and below that a few random old things that I like but don't want out on display. The box with electronics holds my microphone cable and a tripod. Below that are needlework patterns I got from old craft magazines. One row down are sewing patterns, over on the right silks, and a box for pictures for reference and inspiration, cut out from magazines mostly. On the floor is a sketch pad that for some reason has a drawing of Mila Jovovich on the cover. Down here are, well, my doorstop, but behind that, boxes of patchwork fabric, organza and netting. In the red box, background fabric and a large blue folder of various things I tore out of magazines over the years. Oh, yeah, my desk is not actually a desk, but a couch table, and it was so low that my knees kept knocking against the top, so I put it up on bricks, and now it's perfect height. Speaking of my desk, this is it. Last night I whipped up a quick slip cover for my office chair, literally really quick. This is just a flap of fabric. On this desk I do everything. I work here, I do my editing for YouTube, I film when I do some crafty things. I also, as I said, sorted through the things on my pinboard, and now it looks like this lady is really shocked about sewing notions. And now it's a collection of things I need at hand. Thimbles, needles, scissors. But it looks much better. Next to it is my small pinboard, which used to hang between two shelves, but now looks a little forlorn. Below that is my beloved light.
I found it on Amazon advertised as a light for makeup artists and cosmeticians, but it works great for needlework. Very bright light and it doesn't distort the colors, and the magnifier for the tricky bits. Also a very basic Brother sewing machine. In the crate are my various notebooks and journals. Below that, since the declutter, I've finally found space to bring some of my needlework books into the room. We have a book on ruffles, 18th century embroidery techniques, textiles of the Renaissance, a book about monograms, stumpwork beetles, another book about May Morris, my personal embroidery pattern sketchbook, a book about Beatrix Potter, a reproduction of A Workwoman's Guide that was produced with great care and attention to detail, Stumpwork Medieval Flora, Jane Austen's Sewing Box, Tetris and Tea, Embroidery and Storytelling in the Palestinian Diaspora, which I will read as soon as I'm through with May Morris, Soviet Textiles, The Technique of Tape Lace, Stumpwork Butterflies and Moss, The Embroidery of Lesage Atelier in Paris, Silk Ribbon Flowers, and Japanese needlepoint motifs. If you want any more info about these books, let me know in the comments and I'll give you the ISBN. In this metal umbrella stand, I have a bunch of butcher's paper, brown paper, disassembled embroidery frames, and my sword. On the side table are my button boxes. So, my button boxes. I found the small one in a thrift store. It says "Good Girl Gone Bad," but it's kind of upside down for some reason. The clasp to open it is above the writing. In here I have extra buttons that come with clothes I currently have in my wardrobe. I try real hard to remember to put all the extra buttons in here, since it saves a lot of time searching when I notice that I need to replace a button. The big box is a second-hand sewing kit, and a few months ago I sorted through all the buttons. Most of this collection, if you want to call it that, came from my grandmother and aunt. I have them sorted on the top layer, bone and metal buttons on the left, and colorful ones on the right. The colorful ones are mostly, just from looking at them, I'd say from the 50s and 60s. They feel like Bakelite. On the lower level, I have a baggie that holds all the single buttons, and below that, a whole rainbow of hues from black to clear. I found all the buttons that go together and strung them up on sewing thread. I have a couple of strings of buttons that don't technically go together, but they are same material, like mother of pearl or horn. I really like these clear buttons and I hope I come up with a way to use them. Above the buttons are some books and my ridiculous flamingo lamp that I absolutely adore. Looking at the foot of the lamp, maybe I should have done some dusting. Passing by the window? Oh, actually, on the windowsill I feed the squirrels and birds, and sometimes I get to take a break from whatever it is I'm doing to watch a squirrel snack on some nuts. In this basket, I keep my works in progress. Currently, I have in here, on top an embroidery that I finished, but I kept it in the kitchen for a while and, surprise, surprise, got a stain on it. Thank God, only on the backing fabric and not the embroidery itself, so I decided to cut the embroidery out, and I think it would make a really cute patch on a jean jacket maybe? I don't currently own a jean jacket, which is kind of messing with the workflow on that project. The mess of red fabric below is going to be a dress at some point in the future. I'll cover things up with a scarf just to keep the dust off. Now this little side table. A pair of slippers to keep my feet warm. The side table is actually really important because it is pretty much the exact same height as the desk. So, when I work on an embroidery frame, I can move the side table over and work at an angle to the desk and still use the light. The tabletop could use some TLC. Maybe I'll sand it down and use a stain to make it look nicer. Behind is a frame full of dye samples that I wanted to hang up on the wall, but I haven't figured out yet where to put it, so for now it's on the floor. Over in the corner I have a folder to store large-scale patterns. It's from school, and in the 90s I was apparently really into Drew Barrymore. A cutting mat, a pad of tracing paper, some offcuts from the pinboard I made, which are going to be used as soon as I have time. I was excited when I found those. A quilting ruler, another folder that holds photo prints that I meant to get framed but never did, and an empty picture frame. Speaking of frames, in this tote I have some of my works that I liked well enough to put them in frames, but apparently not enough to hang them on my wall. Now, this big boy. Its official name is Apothecary Display Case, but in this house he's big boy. I did not manage to clear the top completely, but it looks much better. The Liberty bag holds bubble wrap, there's my microphone that I use for YouTube and I'm speaking into right now, and a book stand I use when I have a real-life reference picture, so I can set it on my desk in front of me. Here's a big glass jar. I'm working on a doily, and when I crochet and yank on the yarn, it can bounce around the jar and doesn't roll under a wardrobe to get covered in dust bunnies. The gargoyle is from the garden center, and I need 2 hands to move it. Give me a second. Alright, the display case is pretty full, but I'm very happy with it. In the corner, a skull from watching Hamlet at the Globe in London, a picture my friend Mark Stafford painted. He's a fantastic artist, and I'll try to remember to link his Instagram. I also have an old camera and headphones on display, some yarn that is way too close to roving to be useful as yarn, but is a very pretty color. This ribbon has been earmarked for a skirt I want to make, but things I want to make but haven't yet is really the theme of this room. A row below are the important bits that are functional rather than look pretty. Pins, bobbins, a collection of scissors. I put the fabric scissors well away from the rest, so I'll stop accidentally grabbing them to cut paper. The little jar holds pounds and tweezers for removing waste canvas. Next up, a couple of notebooks and the Encyclopedia of Needlework. Twice. Both the German and English version. And I'm kind of thinking of buying the French version, so I have a complete set of all the languages this edition was published in. Great book. Oh, I'm so proud of this. In 2019, I went on an embroidery retreat that was Beatrix Potter themed. This is a stylized view of her house in the Lake District, designed by Jenny Alden Christie. And I did the stitching. Great memories of the retreat too, I love looking at this. Moving on to the 2 boxes on the left that don't seem to want to be in focus. The metal box holds my needles, and oh, I really like these needle books. They have one row of needles with sharp points for hand sewing and a row of blunt needles in various sizes for embroidery. Also very cute packaging. There's a needle book I inherited. It's very cute and the needles are amazing. Surprisingly short but great for darning. Then I have a couple of needle books from classes I took. I keep them in their books to keep the names and sizing information at hand. Oh man, these are so many needles! Another cute needle book with a puppy. And all kinds of needles. And my favorite murder weapon, a needle to make up an embroidery frame. Next time I think about buying needles, somebody stop me. More embroidery and sewing supplies. Some freight jack, a tiny hoop, a thing for making knitted cord, tambour hook, erasable pen, lots of erasable pens in various colors, marker wheels, a leatherworking awl I own for some reason, even though I don't do any leatherworking, pens, 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 seam rippers, a thin awl, a needle holder for pricking patterns, and another tambour hook. Marker pens, marker pencils, chalk pens. I went through these and they all still work. I had these pens distributed in various places across the room and I had no idea I had that many. These are stacks of fabric for applique and patchwork. Here we have a jar of keys. I have tried to find the locks that go with these keys and I managed to sort a couple of them out, but these seem to be orphan keys at this point. I'll find a cute project for these eventually. Then I'll need 2 hands for this. This little box holds my goldwork supplies. Japanese gold thread, some focus, damn it, really fine gold thread. In the little bags are gold check and pearl. This box is such fun to dig around in. And in the corner, a little snack box for the critters outside. Walnuts for the squirrel, sunflower seeds for the finches and tits, and raisins for the blackbirds. They all get the favorites, and I get to watch them. This bank of drawers has my main thread storage and general supplies. Top left holds everything I need for setting up my frames. Twill tape, twine, screws. There's also a clamp for hand sewing, it helps keep the tension. And a bunch of jar lids that keep sequins and beads in check. Below that, my tape measures. In the back, beeswax, felting needles, and a stiletto. A collection of hotel shower caps. I grab one at every opportunity. If I leave an embroidery in the hoop, I cover it with a shower cap to protect it, and it's saved my bacon quite a few times already. The box holds various pins. The normal steel ones, tiny ones for embroidery, extra thin ones for delicate fabrics, glass top pins. They are all double or triple boxed in case of spillage. I've had quite a few pin spills and they are no joke. The next drawer holds a little stencil thing, waste linen, and some iron-on backing, but mostly it's freezer bags in various sizes. And as we go on, you will see why I need so many of them. Oh, I love this drawer. These are my great aunt's sewing supplies. Sewing silks? Oh, look at these colors. Some darning yarn for stockings. These threads are likely too degraded to be used. I mean, they are at least half a century old, but they are just so beautiful. Little button boxes. Doing this one-handed smells like danger. Oh, just so pretty. Alright, down here are things that I don't use as often. Zippers and elastic bands. And in front, roving for needle felting and felt. Now, before I open this drawer, I feel like I should give you a moment to brace yourselves. Alright. This is probably giving some people a nervous rash, but it really works for me. All my sewing threads in various colors. Some older ones, but these are all still new enough to be used. In the little bags are furniture threads and a linen thread. Next drawer holds specialty threads. A few packs of silk twist, double bagged to protect against dirt and dust. Some whitework threads. And some chenille. Now a drawer of wools. The anchor wools are all left over from kits and classes. And there's a set of Renaissance dyeing threads that I bought myself. Below that are my pearls, which are indivisible twisted threads. Oh, if you're wondering why the pearls and wools are in braids, that's how I prepare the skeins for use. Skeins come like this, twisted up tight with a paper sleeve that holds the color number. Obviously, I cannot use them like this, so first get the paper off, but don't throw it out. Undo the twist and you'll find the threads come in a big loop. Find the spot where the ends are knotted. Cut that open and then cut the loop. Find the paper sleeve so you have all the info at hand. Fiddle and wedge the ends of the threads through the sleeve. Take a bit of the threads either side of the sleeve and combine them, so now you have 3 lots that you can braid. Let's speed that up a little. To take out a thread, hook it over your finger by the paper sleeve and pull, very carefully, until it dislodges from the braid. Then you have 1 thread to use and no tangles or knots or any of that annoyance. Alright, that's the pearls. In the drawer below we have silk ribbon, for silk ribbon embroidery. You can make some very beautiful things with silk ribbons, like for example the flowers in this book. Behind the ribbons are a couple of packets of rickrack, and below that a box of gold cord and ribbons and other things that are very pretty, but I haven't thought of what to do with them yet. Next up, the cotton threads, sorted by color. Let me just take these out. This is another one of these moments where some people might shudder in horror, but it works for me, what can I say? So, I sorted my cotton floss by color, yellows, reds and purples, a box of browns, grays and all the neutrals, and 1 drawer for blues and greens. I don't follow a lot of charts, so I don't need them sorted by number, and like this I can grab what looks good to me without having to keep anything in order. Next up is my drawer of all the pretty sparkly things. But everything is double packed in plastic and the pretty things look kind of terrible, so let's take a closer look. I dug out a velvet board, which is a little dusty, but let's ignore that. In my pretty things drawer, I have beads on strings, made up like that to use in tambour embroidery. They come in big tassels like this one, which unravels into 8 or 10 smaller tassels, and each of those loops can be cut to load the beads onto sewing thread that you can then use in tambour work. These tassels are so pleasant to touch, very tactile experience to play with. I also have some length of beads that are meant for jewelry rather than needlework, but frankly I don't know the difference and I don't think it shows on the piece. Also, look at that sparkle. I also have a bunch of beads and pots because even though much of my stash is prepared for tambour work, I mostly use beads and sequins with needles, so I have them in pots. On the left, loose sequins in a jar lid. When using a needle to attach sequins, you pick them up one by one. With tambour hooks, you load them all up on the thread before you start. That's the difference. I have more baggies than your hookup. And here are pretty stones in all the colors. I use these mostly for eyes when I stitch animals or portraits, because then I don't have to stitch eyes and accidentally give a figure a lazy eye. For an example of how I use beads, let's take a look at this snake. There's a stone for the eye, and if you look closely, you see red beads in some of the scales. It gives extra texture and color while being really easy and quick to do. Down here is, oh god, focus, is my silk floss. The silk twist you saw earlier is, as the name suggests, a twisted thread. In this drawer, the silk fibers are not twisted and they lie flat, giving it a beautiful sheen. Also a bit of a pain to work with, but so pretty. If you're wondering about the color choices I made, those came after a visit to the Bavarian National Museum here in Munich and seeing the dress. To me, it is just the dress. To everyone else, it is a robe paré, a French court dress in an off-white silk with absolutely breathtaking embroidery. The people who put the catalog together about the dress were nice enough to include a picture of the back of the needlework. There's a bunch of info, a pattern and close-up photos of the embroidery. Okay, the logic half of my brain knows it would take me a lifetime and a half to make this dress, but the emotion side of my brain keeps whispering, do it, do it. And that's the story of the silk floss. Last column of drawers. On top, a hair straightener I used to press ribbon and small bits of applique fabric that aren't really worth plugging in the iron for. The velvet board for gold work and beads, and in the back some leather scraps I only really use for making my thimbles. Then check it out. This is empty, empty, empty. So beautiful. I really did good sorting through things. In the bottom drawer are instructions for appliances, just so I know where they are and I have them if I need them. Next up, leaning against the wall, is a board I use to block my wool work with after I'm done stitching. And in front of that is all the yarn I have left. Again, I didn't dump the rest in the bin, they are getting donated to an old folks home down the road, once they start accepting donations again. It's all packed up in the cellar right now. In the cubby is an embroidery I'm working on right now, and you're seeing one of the shower caps in action. It's all sitting on my grandfather's chessboard, so I can keep everything that I need together and I can just pull this out and start stitching when I feel like it. There's the threads, some notes, a needle book, and oh, my tulip needles! In a number 12, which are the smallest embroidery needles I have ever worked with. Super annoying, but also make really pretty stitches. As a rule, I feel like the supplies that are the most annoying also give the prettiest results, which in itself, that's pretty annoying to be honest. On the floor, I have some clear bins in which I keep things that I inherited. Some are made, but mostly inherited. Doilies, embroidered handkerchiefs and tablecloths. I'm not a fan of how the bins look, I might cover them up with some fabric eventually. and a tray for when I have coffee in here. I use the tray so in case of spillage everything stays on the tray and it doesn't get on any work. A floor stand for my light, and behind it my ironing board that I desperately need to make a new cover for because it sticks out like a sore thumb. I put a scarf on my mirror because I used to catch movement out of the corner of my eye, you know, my reflection, but it made me a little uncomfortable, so I'm covering up the mirror when I don't use it. Behind it is a roll of pattern paper. Alright, last set of shelves. On top I've got my paintbrushes. I really like these plastic flowers for some reason. Here we have a whole stack of embroidery hoops. I don't use handhelds anymore, but I display work in them and I want to get some color on these walls, so I'm gonna hang on to them. In the middle is fabric for counted work. Behind the curtain, I love this curtain, it's such a beautiful fabric. Let me just take off the curtain. Alright, on the top shelf, it looks empty, it is not. It holds a black carry bag for my embroidery frames. When I did a tambour class in Paris, I had to take an embroidery frame on the metro during rush hour every morning. I hated it. The people on their way to work hated me, it was a whole thing. Below that is my fabric for making clothes. My iron, it sits on a patch of felt. You can't see it on camera, but it is there to protect the iron from scratching. Below that is some tulle, fake fur, and a whole lot of muslin and padding fabric. In the bottom, fabric for furniture. I've made slipcovers from most of these and I'm hanging onto scraps in case I need to fix something or the person I made the slipcover for wants a throw pillow in the same fabric. Hey, check it out, nothing on the floor. I had some very dusty boxes there and it looks much neater now. Here I make my tea. I usually am too nervous to drink in here, but I keep a tea stash here and then go next door to drink. In this little drawer I have fennel tea, below rosehip and chamomile, and in the compartment sweetener and instant coffee. Above the door I put up some coat hooks to store my embroidery hoops. I need to get on with wrapping these in bias tape so I can actually use them. I have 3 wrapped ones and usually that's more than enough for me, but they are all in use right now on big projects. So if I have a quick idea, I don't have a frame for it right now. Alright, that's the full tour, and while I was showing you everything, I made a mess again. I'll take care of that in a minute. One thing I noticed is, since decluttering and with all the dark wood in the room and white walls, the room looks a bit severe. I love it, but hey, look, there's a bunch of pink. I'm not that severe. Look at the flamingo, I can be whimsical. I think I'll have to make some fun, colorful things to hang on the walls and take a little of the severe edge off. Alright, that's all I have for now. If you enjoyed this craft room tour and you're curious what I get up to in here from now on, you could subscribe maybe. Before I end this video, I wanted to add a little note to anyone who is interested in hand embroidery, but now, after seeing this craft room tour, you might feel a little bit overwhelmed maybe, because you think it'll be expensive to start and you'll need so many things. Let me reassure you. My craft supplies are the result of nearly 15 years of accumulation. I did not start out with silk and gold threads either. I started with cotton and still, to this day, work mostly with cotton. I started with cheap handheld frames, and once I was sure I wanted to pursue embroidery as a hobby, then I did invest in a seed frame. The bar to entry with embroidery is luckily very low. Embroidery is also accessible to a lot of people with disabilities since it requires only hand mobility and some vision. And it's a nice hobby for the socially anxious among us, since at an embroidery group you can socialize without the expectation of eye contact. I quite enjoy that part too. And that, in a nutshell, is my pitch for hand embroidery, the best hobby on earth. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment if you have anything to tell me, but be nice about it, and I'll speak to you again next week. Bye!